Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Public Works and Planning Committee meeting. First of all, we'll call the roll, please.
Commissioner Cush.
Present.
Commissioner Piercy.
Here.
Commissioner P.
Here.
Commissioner James. Here. Commissioner Dodd.
Here.
Chairman Johnson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, next we'll have approval of the minutes. Commissioner Dodd.
Thank you, Chairman. I make a motion for your approval of last month's minutes.
Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? We have one public comment. Laura Clark. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here speaking on behalf of the full commission approving Plan Rutherford. You know, several months back, I think I stood up here and spoke in favor of it because it looked good to me. And as I've learned more about it, it seems that this is absolutely the time to take it beyond what happened in 2011 with the current plan, where it was approved by the Planning Commission, but not by the full commission. And so, looking at the maps, reading through the plan, it just seems to me that now, with the exorbitant growth that's happening in our county, it is the time to get a plan in place that has a little more teeth than the one before had. And to have more teeth to that plan, it needs the full commission's approval. I know there's disagreement even within this room on the benefits of doing this, but I'm just speaking as a citizen, looking at the plan, the growth that's happening in this county, and the fact that we didn't have it before, and now with the growth that is happening now, which is much more than 2011, this is the time, I hope, for this committee to send it to the full commission and recommend its approval by the commission. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have the Highway Department Superintendent Greg Brooks. But it's not Greg.
I am James Locum, the Rutherford County Public Works Engineer, and this evening I bring before your consideration a temporary construction easement that was approved by the Road Board on October 2nd, and that is a temporary construction easement at the address of 1017 and 1101 Renee Drive in Christiana, in which Miss Wanda Chanel at 1017, she called, and there is a 18-year-old drainage easement between her and her neighbor, Andrew Sims, that has been silted in over 18 years, and it's not functioning properly. And on investigation, I went out there this 20-foot drainage easement consists of a curb inlet that is piped underground. There's a concrete outlet, a head wall outlet, and then it enters a swell that has been silted in 1.5 feet. And then it goes to the west side of the property line, the back portion of the property. It turns north and enters the drainage easement there, which has been overgrown, and people have dumped their grass clippings, their debris, everything you can imagine. And so all of that combined is affecting the drainage easement. And so Public Works would like to enter the property between the two property lines with a skid steer bush hog, Mini X, and a dump truck, and bush hog the back portion of the property line that's overgrown, clear that out, regrade the entire swell, and seed and straw our way out. And I don't foresee any issues. I think it would just take one day to complete. So with that, do you have any questions?
So James, do you have to regrade the ditch then?
Yes, sir.
And is the pipe that's associated with that, is it silted up and plugged?
No, the pipe is in great condition. It's not silted up.
Okay.
Since it's at the outlet.
Okay,
So-
all right.
Are you gonna reseed that area so it doesn't just silt right back in?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Probably Matt as well.
Is there a fence along that grown-up area that has to be taken down and then put back up?
There is a chain link fence at the back portion of 1101, but I think we can work around it.
Okay.
That's about the only main concern that I have.
All right.
But we can squeeze in there with the skid steer, with the bush hog attachment and the bucket, and
Well, what do you estimate number of work days?
just one.
Okay, all right. I would make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the Solid Waste Convenience Center. That'd be Assistant Director and Acting Director right now, Matt Davis. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Matt Davis, and I'm honored to serve as your interim solid waste director. I have our monthly report, and I have a grant application and the annual inflation adjustment I'd like to share with you tonight. Our report is as follows. Rutherford County landfill processed 143.34 tons of brush for a revenue of $4,310. We managed 1,462 tires for a revenue of $2,681. Rutherford County Solid Waste managed 3,197.22 tons of waste from all sources in the month of September. 2,023.78 tons came from convenience centers. 570.17 tons came from schools. We recycled and diverted 403.27 tons from all sources. That makes a residential diversion rate of 12.61% for September, is a little bit of a tick up. The Rutherford County Solid Waste Transfer Station processed 8,969.12 tons of waste in the month of September. After costs for loading, hauling, and disposal, we expect to return $133,037.99 to the county. That is my monthly report.
Commissioner P.
Got a question for you. Since you were talking about the transfer station, Tennessee Code annotated 68-21-862 requires that any solid waste transfer station record the weights and where the county of origin that any trash going through the transfer station originated from. I'd like to see a monthly report on that, where this trash is coming from, specifically that's going through the transfer station, according to state law. And I can, of course, send that to you, but you should be aware of that already.
I'd be glad to add it to the report going forward.
Okay, now, I want to know, how are you going to verify that none of this is out of county waste?
It is our word with the drivers that come in and the companies they work for.
Again, all you're going to do is ask them. You're not going to do any kind of verification?
I mean, if there's other options on the table, I'd be glad to discuss them, but that is the process right now.
Well, the commission has made it pretty clear that we don't want outside waste, outside of this county waste coming in. Are you aware of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I just want to emphasize, I'd like to see that on a report monthly from now on going forward of any trash coming out of that transfer station or going into it, the county of origin, which you have to post that anyway by law. Okay, thank you.
Chairman, you asked for county of origin and tonnage?
I can read you what the code is. Hang on. It says the owner or operator of each Class 1 municipal solid waste disposal facility, incinerator, or transfer station shall be responsible for, one, maintaining an accurate written record of all amounts and county of origin of solid waste measured in tons received at the facility, and two, submitting the information required under subdivision A1 to the department. Item B, measurement in tons of solid waste received shall be accomplished by one or two more of the following methods. One, the provision of a stationary or portable scales at the disposal facility or incinerator or transfer station for weighing incoming trash, or two, implementation of contractual or other arrangements for the use of scales at the location other than the disposal facility, incinerator, or transfer station for weighing all waste designed for disposal at the facility.
I've kind of got a question. to
Mr.
follow up
James.
with that. Correct me if I'm wrong, any waste that goes to the transfer station is paid for at the scale house and then not dumped in Rutherford County.
That is correct.
So that's where I'm trying to understand what you're looking for, or what's the value. I know we didn't want outside trash coming into the county and being buried in the county, but if they're going to pay us for tipping at the transfer station, it's just more money in our coffers.
I didn't say that it wouldn't be possible more revenues, but this county commission and the mayor ran on the presumption that he did not want any outside county waste coming into this county. I'm following up on what he's saying there. And all I'm saying is it needs to be reported whether we allow it or not. My opinion is we're not allowing it. Now, if y'all want to change that, that'd be up to the full commission to decide it. But my opinion is right now we're not accepting outside county waste.
I can respect that. My understanding of what we were doing was we were not accepting and having any outside of the county waste left buried here in the county. So I was looking at it as if we're getting revenue to haul their trash for them because they're paying us the fee to do so. It's not staying here and we get more money.
Well, you also got more costs because you've got a lot more waste that's coming in and building up on our roadways, and that's part of the reason for us not wanting outside county waste. It's because of the amount of traffic and us upkeeping all the infrastructures to maintain these roads, keep them clean where trash is blowing off of them. So it's not just revenues, you got to look at the cost too.
And Commissioner P., based on what you're saying, we don't have a choice anyway. The report has to be made. It's Tennessee regulation.
Well, exactly. We don't, that's state law that I read off there. It has to be reported. Now, whether we allow it or not, I think that's up to the commission's discretion. But all the commissioners that I had talked to made it plain that they didn't want outside county waste. And this is allowing outside county waste, and you're not verifying it right now. That needs to be corrected.
I think all of you will remember in past meetings, I think every time that was brought up, I kind of rebuked that. It was obvious that we were going to have out of county coming in here to the transfer station to make it work. Not that that's what we want, because I agree with you, Commissioner P., but it was said at just about every meeting about the transfer station that we would have a report on where the trash was coming from. You have something, Matt? Anything else?
I'll be glad to add it to our monthly report and bring it to you.
Mr. Piercy.
We've had this discussion lightly before, and about the only answer was to ask the driver. I would challenge each person on this committee to give this some thought And if you can come up with another way or a suggestion that we might answer that better, you know, bring it back to this committee or contact Matt, one of the two. Because that's all I've ever heard too myself was, you know, ask the driver, when they signed the contract, they were going to ask them where the trash come from. And if there's any other way, you know, maybe one of us could think of something that would help. Thank you.
I want to say too, Director, I know it's kind of dumped on you, so I understand you not having a strong answer for Commissioner P., but you know what he's asking now. We appreciate you. And I appreciate you stepping in and doing the job that you're doing, because it's got a lot more cooperation now, and I appreciate it.
I'm happy to serve.
Was that all your report?
Yes.
Okay. We don't. We need a motion? Thank you. We have a motion and 2 seconds. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you.
The Solid Waste Department is also asking to make a grant application to TDEC. The grant award would be up to $49,972.87, and the county would have to match that. We intend to use it to promote recycling with the schools and hopefully kind of see some better results there with our program.
Commissioner P.
Well, I think it's a great idea. It's actually the same idea Commissioner Harris and I brought to y'all last month, and we voted down. Are we going to go along with it this time, since we've got a different person presenting the same grant? I'm going to make a motion to accept it and forward it to budget.
Is that a motion? Okay, we have a motion to send this grant proposal to budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Yes.
We need roll call.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. And if I may, one question.
Yes, sir.
The matching grant component, Matt, will that come out of your fund balance, out of solid waste? Would
it's
that
not
be your
budgeted.
recommendation? If it did come into, if you were awarded the grant and we contemplated it in the future, do you think those funds would come out of your budget?
I don't think so.
At this time, we said no, but Michael was aware of it, and he said we would see when we get the grant how to.
And tell me again the match amount?
It's a 50%. The grant award from the state would be $49,972.
And 25,000 would be our, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Yes, roll call, please.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy, Commissioner P.,
Yes.
Chairman Johnson.
Aye,
Motion passes.
thank you.
The last thing I have for you tonight is the annual inflation adjustment for TDEC, where the county has to show they have resources. There should be any major problems at the landfill. That gets adjusted periodically for inflation. I've also brought this to Michael. This increases the amount of financial assurance on the Class 1 landfill to $861,264.78. On the remaining Class 3 landfill would be $1,421,572.06. I've talked to Michael about it. He's aware. He says the county has the money put aside, and TDEC requires us to present this to you.
Chairman, can we get these speakers turned on or turned up? I'm having a hard time hearing them. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So TDEC requires us to have a financial assurance on file that the county has the resources to handle any problems that might come from the old landfills on county property. And those have been increased to match inflation. On the older Class 1 landfill, it's $861,000. On the Class 3 landfill, it's a $1,421,000 change. And then that's an increase of about 4% over last year.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
First of all, just so this seems very familiar that we have to look at this periodically. And the amount we have to cover, Commissioner James, we've had this in place before. Every year we have to do it. So we have to have cash set aside that equals the bond amount. And inflation this year was 4.2 or 2.4.
It was about 4.
So it goes up by inflation. The amount we have to cover jumped by some 360,000. We add that to last year's amount, and we just say that we have enough cash on hand set aside to cover the bond amount. So it's just a budgeted item that's increased by 4.2%. So it's a yearly must-do item. So that's just a little bit of clarity.
I get it. I just couldn't hear him. Ask
Got
him to
it.
repeat.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve it. All in favor? Or any more discussion? Any more discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner James? Yes. Commissioner Cush? Aye. Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Matt. And we're going to switch up the next item. We're going to move 6 up to 5. Building and Codes Director Tanya Bell.
Yeah.
We went way over last committee meeting, and I think
Well, thank
Tanya
you.
got left out of supper, so we got her in quicker.
It's much appreciated. I've had a Monday today and my iPad won't connect, so. I'm Tanya Bale, Director of the Building Codes Department, and I am here with our September monthly report. We issued a total of 378 permits in the month of September. Only 36 of those were primary single-family dwellings, as opposed to last year. Compared to last year, we had 118, so we had a sad September. Anyway, for a total revenue of $153,541.05. We did 1,700 building inspections, 1,772 building inspections, and just shy of 10,000 miles driven. And zoning enforcement, we had a total of 162 inspections in zoning enforcement. And if there's no questions on that, I will move on to school facilities tax and development tax. School facilities tax, we collected $491,795.50 in school facilities to bring this fiscal year's accumulative total to a little better than 1.9 million. One development tax receipt in the amount of $750. And that concludes my report.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you.
I do have one announcement or one thing I'd like to just advise the board or the committee that I am currently looking at adopting the 2024 International Building Code Series. I don't know, some of you may or may not be familiar that we need to stay within 7 years of the most recent printed code edition. and in 27, obviously, at the 2018, we'll be out of that 7 years. So we, along with the city of Murfreesboro, the town of Smyrna, the city of Laverne, and the city of Eagleville, will all be adopting the code. We typically do that. When we adopt a code, we try to do it together. So we've met a couple of times. We will also meet with the Home Builders Association just to see if they've got any input or anything. I hope to bring up, been working on it for a couple of months, any modifications, additions, and stuff. So I hope to bring it before County Commission. It has to have 2 readings, November and December, with an effective date of hopefully February 1, March 1, before the spring building season starts next year. All right, so I just wanted to advise you of that. So we're going to adopt the 24 because it's already been published. It came out last year. So, but we have to stay within 7 years of the most recent published edition, which will be January of 27. They will come out with one, and we'll be 9 years behind. So we have to do it this year. All right, so I'll bring that. I'll update you next month. And let you know, I'll be closer then to doing it and taking it before the commission. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Did you have a question?
Okay, next we have Planning and Engineering Director, Doug Demosi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, board members, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. We'll start out with our regular reports that we have. The first report is our available lot inventory. You'll see as of the end of September, we had total available lots, and again, those are lots that are ready for building permits currently, is at 995. That's up about 60 to 70 from last month. We had a couple of larger subdivision sections that were approved this past month, as well as from what Ms. Bell was just talking about, slower building activity as far as new building permits being issued, so that's why you're seeing that jump in there. I also included in your packets on your iPads the chart that we try to update quarterly for you just to take a look at, just to kind of show you how the total available lots have been tracking over the last, well, since we've been tracking it since 2009. So you can kind of see, you know, again, just as an overview on there, that the highest that we had, the highest lot count that we had, and this is just for the unincorporated area, but the highest lot count that we had recorded was about 1,688, and that was back during the recession, 09, 010 area. The lowest that we had, where things were really going, we had about 548. That was the low point that we had, and that was somewhere around the late 2016, early 2017 timeframe. And then you see it's kind of been all over the place over the last several years. Kind of on a little bit of an upswing right now, as you can look at the chart, but this is just something really for your information. We try to provide this to you quarterly. That way you just have an idea as to what the building permit activity and the available lots look like for the unincorporated areas of the county. Are there any questions on that chart or the report, that part of the report? If not, I will go ahead and get into our rezoning report. We have 3 cases for your consideration at next week's meeting. All 3 of these happen to be in Commissioner P's district, so he was kind of a busy guy at the last Planning Commission meeting. But the first is by Robert Timothy Holder. This is for property located at 1601 Flat Rock Road. Property is currently zoned commercial services. He is asking for commercial general zoning. This property was zoned, at least most of it, back in 2013 when we went under the current zoning ordinance. The site has been used for non-residential purposes since the late 90s. They did add a small portion, about a half acre, adjacent to the property back in 2017 and also zoned it commercial services, and then combined the two into one piece of property in 2018. The applicant would like to zone this property commercial general to sell automobiles along with an automobile repair shop. CS does allow for automobile repair, but does not allow for the sales, which is why he was asking for commercial general. There's not a concept plan included with your agenda packets. You will see the maps. However, the applicant has indicated they're not really changing anything. They're going to use the site pretty much in its current condition, so there wasn't really anything to show on a concept plan. The property will still have its 2 access points along Flat Rock Road. They're not proposing any additional access points. If they were to propose any new development, that's something we would look at with an engineered site plan. Landscape buffering and everything is not changing due to the rezoning request as it's already commercially zoned and our performance standards would still apply. The Planning Commission did have some questions about the number of vehicles the applicant planned to sell or store on the property. Applicant's representative said about 10 vehicles. There were no other questions from the commission and no one spoke during the public hearing except for Commissioner P. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this application by unanimous vote. The next application is for property located along John Bragg Highway 6525. This is by John Rakin. The property is currently zoned residential medium density. They are asking for light industrial. The applicant's letter, again, this is all on your iPad, states that they would like to zone the property to LI, and this is directly from his application, with the intent of developing a modern, community-oriented self-storage facility. The letter further states they would not have any permanent bathrooms on the facility or staff. They propose to utilize less than 50% of the property, use low-impact lighting and full perimeter fencing for security. This use is allowed by right in the light industrial zone. You will find a concept plan for this application in your agenda packets, along with some architectural renderings. Of course, this is not binding, this is not a planned development, but it does give you an idea of what direction they'd like to go. So should the property develop in this manner with the proposed use, they would need to make some changes to the concept plan just because there are issues with the plan, certain aspects of it that don't meet our requirements, but that's something that we'd work through should this application be approved during the site plan review process. Access to this property would be along John Bragg Highway. They have not done a traffic study yet, but should this application be approved, we can require one if we do deem it necessary. Of course, this is a state road, so any improvements to access would have to be approved by TDOT. And TDOT has the ability to approve or to require a traffic study or an access study as well. Landscape screening and performance standards would apply as well. There were some questions about the location of median cuts and possible traffic improvements. There were some concerns also about the range of uses in the light industrial zone and whether a planned development approach was discussed. We hadn't had really any discussions with the applicant about that. He further stated when he came back up to speak that there was something they considered, but they decided just to go with the light industrial zoning for what they were proposing to do. There were also some questions about stormwater and options for handling any increases. Following the public hearing, one of the commissioners did ask if they could limit the use to just self-storage. We said the only way to do that would be through a planned development approach, which was what he was asking for. There was some discussion about the difference in costs for the application of that at least. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of the request by a vote of 9-4 and 1 against. The last application is by Chris Rudd for Propco 1000 LLC. This is for an existing, approved development at Las Casas Pike and Mockingbird Lane. This is for a planned development amendment. The planned development for Mockingbird Estates was approved by the Board of Commissioners back in December of 2023. The Planning Commission has seen a preliminary plan for the single-family element in July of 2024. There's not been a site plan submittal. There were two aspects to this. There was a single-family unit aspect, and then there was also some townhome elements as well. But we have not seen a site plan for the townhome portion at this point. They're just changing a handful of things in the pattern book from what was originally approved. The first is the bedroom count. There is a chart that I put in the staff report that shows you what was originally approved versus the proposed amendment. Basically, they're asking, instead of the pattern book saying 3 maximum bedrooms, that it would be 2 minimum, and that would be for both the detached and attached products. And the reason for that was if there were some products that were 4 bedrooms, they wanted the ability to have that flexibility rather than having a cap at 3 bedrooms. You'll notice the size of the units also decreased slightly from, for the attached product from 1850 to 1600 and from 2400 down to 1900. We have been in conversations with the applicant's design team regarding the drainage of the property. There are some concerns, and there had been some concerns regarding the drainage going through the step area. The applicant has been working with staff and officials at CUD to accommodate the stormwater runoff, which made some of the townhome units have to be relocated slightly, so that's part of this as well. The other part that is a fairly significant change to their pattern book had to do with access. The development currently has 2 access points onto Mockingbird Lane. We have had some conversations with the developer of property to the northwest where the Bonar subdivision is located regarding a proposed connection to this property that we're talking about tonight. So rather than have the proposed development have 2 access points along Mockingbird Lane, we feel that it's a better situation if they had the one on Mockingbird Lane, but then that back connection, which connects into Boar, which ultimately goes back out to Compton Road. So we know that there's concerns with Emory Road, and we know that there are concerns also with Mockingbird Lane. We felt that this would be a better approach, allow people to get through that development without having to go onto Mockingbird and onto Compton Road to get to the light at Compton Road if they were going out toward or past Las Casas in that area. There were questions about the improvements to Mockingbird Lane. Staff did answer that improvements would be made along the property's frontage, along with improvements to the intersection of Las Casas Pike and Mockingbird Lane. There was also further discussion on the drainage and the proposed improvements. I would like to reiterate, though, that the improvements that they are proposing for the traffic were approved under the first approval, the original approval, so they're not changing any of those traffic improvements. Another commissioner asked about the increased number of bedrooms, how that might affect the development. Staff answered that not all the units are going to have more bedrooms. It was just allowing a little more flexibility than what they currently had. During the public hearing, there were concerns about conditions of Mockingbird Lane, drainage, affordable housing, the appropriateness of the development of the area. Following the public hearing, there were some additional questions about the proposed traffic improvements, and there was also some discussion regarding ownership versus rental of the properties. There is a statement directly in the pattern book that this would not be sold to a rental community type developer. So that's specifically stated in the pattern book. So after discussion, the Planning Commission did recommend approval by a unanimous vote. So those are the 3 coming before you next week, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Piercy.
Doug, on this development you've just explained to us, has there been any thought put into the increase this could have on the water flow going to Compton Road? Across Compton Road, they're already getting some pretty big swells and a real heavy rain. Will this affect that in any way?
Well, to answer your question, it should not result in any increase to that, because any development that is done cannot increase the amount of water that's flowing off the property onto adjacent properties. So with the drainage improvements that they are proposing here, you wouldn't see any increase to that. So to answer your question, yes, it has been taken into account.
So all the water coming off the north side will go into this new development and then travel on now?
Well, the water, you're talking about the north side subdivision? Yes. Yeah, that water will continue going where it's going, but this development is not going to compound that. You know, some of that, and Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of that's going to be bypassed, through the pond system and everything. But the development itself will have its own stormwater detention facilities and things to handle any kind of an increase that they would have, so as not to increase that stormwater running off the property to the north-northwest.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
You need a motion on his presentation.
Yes, we'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the report.
We have a motion and a second to approve the report. All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Thank you.
You want me to?
Yeah.
Next, we have a request to apply for a TDOT planning grant. I'm going to ask, with the chair's permission, that our Assistant County Engineer for Construction, Jarrod Bonar, come up and make that presentation.
Welcome.
Evening. So the Tennessee Department of Transportation Planning Grant, the window to apply for it opened the 2nd of September. I feel like it's an opportunity for this county to begin moving forward once again with another corridor study. There's several opportunities within the grant. It is a $250,000 maximum grant with a 10% match from the county. It's a $250,000 maximum grant through the Department of Transportation with a 10% local match, 10% match from the county. So it'd be a maximum of $25,000 from the county. These There's several opportunities, complete streets plans, there's some TISMO plans, which basically would look at a lot of signal work. There's corridor studies, resurfacing plans, and there's community mobility plans. The initial thought right now is to do a corridor study in the county, probably looking at Armstrong Valley Road and Midland Road down between Murfreesboro city limits down to the Bedford County line. And try to, what that corridor study will basically do is give us suggestions of improvements that can be made down through there. If we need some stop signs, if there's a possibility to straighten some curves out, to at places that we might need a signal, things of that nature. So all I'm asking for is permission to apply for it tonight.
I'll make a motion to allow you to apply.
Have a motion and a second to apply for this grant. Discussion?
Did I read this correct, that we should find out if we get this around December and they
Yes.
start awarding it around January?
Yes. Yes. We would come back before anything is accepted. It'd have to come back through this body.
Mr. Cush?
So Jarrod, who within the highway department or public works, who's the team that decides, hey, we want to look at this, and prioritize projects?
Right now, you're looking at him.
Gotcha.
Any other discussion?
Yes. We obviously have, Commissioner Dodd has the advisory board that we're working through. The good thing about Rutherford County right now is there's a lot of opportunities for these kinds of grants all over the county. So it's not just a one-off thing.
So could you do multiple projects that add up to a total of 250, or do you just have to submit one?
The Department of Transportation actually chooses the award amount. They're the ones that handle all of that part of it once the grant application is made. If we wanted to expand it, if we wanted to look at roads coming in,
Yeah.
say to Armstrong Valley or something like that, then it could be expanded that far, yes.
Okay. So is this one of those things where you ask for 3 and hope to get 1, or do you just focus on one project and hope that's the one that
I think right now it'd be best to focus on one, and then let's get our feet wet with it essentially, because this will be the first time that we've applied for this
Got it.
grant. So just, give us the opportunity to get our feet wet with it, and then we can improve it as
Got
we
it.
move forward.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Cush? Commissioner Piercy? Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner James? Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Chairman Johnson?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Mr. Chairman, before he leaves, I've got a question.
He's coming back.
Okay.
Yes,
I
sir.
was expecting to hear something about East Pitts Lane where, you got Murfreesboro Medical Clinic is building that new facility, and then St. Thomas Ascension is proposing or already approved to put in an emergency center there. And then they're also working in conjunction with the city of Murfreesboro, since the road East Pitts has not been annexed into the city, but they want us, my understanding is, to expand the road or the right-of-way so they can put a buffer zone in there. But I've been getting a lot of calls from people over there, and they're concerned about being able to turn onto 96. It's terrible. You're taking your life in your hands to try to turn left off of East Pitts, and they're requesting that when the county looks at that we require a turning lane there so people can at least have a chance to get on the road safely. Anyway, I just want to throw that out for discussion and make sure that's something that we're looking at. I was hoping Mr. Brooks will be here tonight, but we can catch him at another time. But if you've got any information on that, what we could do for improvement, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Mr. Bonar is coming back up. He does. I personally haven't been that involved in that, but Jarrod's coming back up to address that.
Well, welcome back.
As far as I know, yes, it's part of what we're looking at. I don't think we have the TIS report from the developer at the moment, but yes.
Wait a minute, make sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying that you would require turn lane.
That's depending on what the TIS report comes back with.
You're saying TIS, you're talking about a report from the state.
Yeah,
That's the state highway there.
Yes, it is. Yes, it would go through the state highway, yes. They would have to apply to, the developer would have to apply that through the Department of Transportation, any improvements on 96.
If you're familiar with the traffic there, I cannot fathom that they would do it any other way
Yeah.
without requiring that.
Yes.
It would
And we're,
definitely if not.
engineering is definitely something we're looking hard at, to making sure that they're going to have to try to get turn lanes put in there.
Well, are they looking at putting a red light on either one of those entrances?
Not at the moment. It's not what we've been told. But once again, we can't really make that judgment until we get the TIS report back in.
And two, that's actually the entrance going into MMC, the new entrance, is in the city. Is that correct? Pretty sure it is. I mean, they've been annexed. Let's put it that way.
Yes, yes. For Las Casas, it is. Yes, yes.
What they didn't annex was East Pitt.
Was East Pitt? Yes, you're correct.
I understand why they didn't do that. They could put that off on us doing it. So.
Yeah. We have been clear with that developer that they will have to make the improvements to East Pitt.
Well, I just want to make it clear that I will not go along personally with anything that doesn't involve getting some kind of turn lane and improve the safety problem there.
Understood.
Thank you.
Yes.
If I can expand and ask, how do you, like we've got that property he mentioned on Pitts, we've got what I'm going through over on Amoville and 840 and 96 area, and there's others. How do you pick, like on this grant, you chose the, what was it, 99 going out towards Shelbyville as the one you wanted to focus on? How do you line them up and organize whose intersections are taking priority? What is that criteria?
Most of it is development driven right now, and we're kind of trying to change that and get ahead of it at the county level. As far as what's picked to do for our TIS studies, now that we have our third-party consultant on board, we have a sit-down meeting that we do a scoping session. It's between the county and our third party and the developer, and we all agree to what the scope is that's going to be studied in those TIS reports. So we look at basically every interchange that we feel like is going to be impacted on it, and then any roadways that go in between.
What is our current plan, or what's our actions if we find an area or intersections that maybe development's not coming, but it's already needed? Do we just waiting on development to come and throw it at them, or how do we preempt that? How do we get that light or that expansion on the road in place when there's no development coming in the area to pay for it?
As I understand it, historically, that's what's been done, is we wait for development to come. Like I said, there's some change in that, and we're trying to get ahead of it, but we don't have a precise plan on that right now. But we are trying to get ahead of it. That's kind of what I was hired for, I feel like.
Mr. Dodd.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner James, that is part of the mayor's capital improvement plan that has been discussed at property management a couple of times. One of the components of the CIP is traffic, new roadways. We're just at the beginning of how can we collect data to analyze what roadways and intersections need work, what is the criteria, and then how can we prioritize roadways or intersections that need improvement. So we're trying to make that, we're trying to codify that currently. And it's starting in property management. And eventually we're going to get in front of the other committees and say, hey, what are your priorities for capital improvements from Public Works? I would assume ours would be roadways. If we have any concept of how to start analyzing roads, prioritizing roads, compartmentalizing roads, and then push that up to property management, and that'll be part of the ultimate CIP program. That's the vision anyway. Brick and mortar primarily, and infrastructure, which primarily is going to be roads. So we need to undertake that task. Otherwise, it's subjective, right?
Yes.
Like, how do you prioritize? So until we create a mechanism to analyze and then prioritize, and then third, the big one is, how are we going to fund it? So that's, our long-term goal is, how do we fund improvements that currently we've just left until development might occur?
I get that. We need that, and I feel like we needed that a decade ago in place. It's just, I find it frustrating that when the citizens say, how do we do this? How do we need this here now for years? And our response is, we wait. Every one of us knows our individual districts pretty well, to the point to where we should be able to say flat out, this area is a problem. That's kind of why I stood against some projects coming in the area, is it's a problem. So yeah, it's needed. We need it yesterday. So Godspeed.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Demosi was going to be the next one up, but we have a guest speaker tonight, or maybe two, from Middle Tennessee Electric, so we're moving them up to come in with their presentation at this time. It's you Director of Engineering?
Beg your pardon?
You the Director of Engineering or
No.
you're Engineering?
No,
Neither one?
I'm the government relations administrator.
Okay.
As I said, my name is Chuck Barber, and I'm the government relations administrator for Middle Tennessee Electric. 36 years ago, I started my career down the road here on Maple Street. And 36 years ago, we had well under 100,000 meters. Today, we serve close to 350,000 meters. That makes us the largest member-owned not-for-profit co-op in the state and the second largest in the country. I think the only co-op that beats us is one in Texas, and I believe they've got like 400,000. So 350,000. MTE has 530 employees that serve our members out of different offices located throughout our service territory. We have 54 substations that serve over 15,000 miles of line. We sell about 8.8 billion kilowatt hours generated by TVA annually. As everybody in here knows, over the past several years, we've experienced a lot of growth. And we all know how painful that can be. We grow at about 10,000 meters a year, which is the equivalent of some of our neighboring co-ops' total size. So that's a lot of meters. With that growth, as you know, we have challenges, and some of the folks in here may have experienced some of those back a few years ago with the transformer shortage that we had. It was due to a DOE proposed regulation to make transformers more efficient, and luckily that was shut down by the government. They noticed that the savings there wasn't really what it should be. But what happened is the manufacturers of these transformers thought, we're not going to keep production going, we're going to have to retool to be able to meet this new requirement, which put us in a bad predicament with transformers. A lot of our neighboring power distributors locally were putting signs up in the yard saying, hey, we can't serve you, because there was no transformers to be had. But the good news is, with our size that we are and the amount of pre-purchasing transformers and equipment, we were able to stay on top of the typical overhead transformer that's used to service your typical customer and meet the needs of our customers. We heard stories about our neighbors around us that couldn't provide basic service. So I think our size and buying power and the ability to keep a lot of stock, which we do today, we even have co-ops come to us if they run out of a transformer size or whatever and say, hey, can you help us out? So we're able to weather that storm. About 10.2% of our members are commercial and industrial. One of our largest customers in Rutherford County is obviously the Board of Education, and that's combined meters. Our single largest customer, obviously, is Nissan at about 54 megawatts of power, and of course the new Quanta facility, which will need approximately 20 megawatts of power. With all the growth and larger loads coming into the TVA area, TVA is looking to add more generation, and this is probably the most critical situation we've been in years. It's not just in the valley, but it's a nationwide concern. There's folks will have nuclear, they'll have a portfolio of hydro, different providers will have solar, coal. Well, TVA has done a great job in keeping up with that, and they have right now 3 nuclear facilities online, with a new site being developed at the Clinch River in Oak Ridge. This site is going to have new technology, basically called a small modular reactor. It's the newest, cleanest, smallest way to create energy with a capability of producing about 300 megawatts of power, which is pretty good size. Today, TVA basically uses nuclear for its base load, and anything that requires a demand, like in cold weather or hot weather where the demand is high, they'll pull in coal, hydro, steam, that kind of thing. So nuclear is it. That's the way of the future. I know that the administration in D.C. is really pushing it. Our congressmen and senators are pushing it. They're pushing TVA to move forward, and that's happening, and we fully support that. Middle Tennessee Electric has some solar generation in College Grove, and it produces about 1 megawatt of power. It's sitting on about, 5 or 10 acres of property, and we've got solar panels all over that area, which produces energy. We're looking at another site capable of producing about 110 megawatts, which is substantially bigger. We also, with all this concern of, okay, how are we going to provide power? One of the things we push is how to save power. And we have incentive programs for EVs, home efficiencies, new home programs to try to help teach our members to save that power and maybe use it off peak versus when we really need it. Our C&I customers also were incentivized through their rates by being part of TVA, Middle Tennessee Electric programs, to say, hey, I'm only going to bring power on off peak at these certain times. If TVA calls for a load shed, they're willing to shed part of their factory's load to get a better rate. So rates, I think in the future, is going to be something that's going to give our customers more of a way to be able to control their costs, not only with C&I, but also one day possibly residential customers. So with all that being said, and I know I'm standing between y'all and getting home to eat supper, but we're here to serve you. I think one thing we've got going for us is that we are a large company. Our primary goal is service. Mayor Carr knows that better than anybody. He and I work a lot together on different projects. Example, out at the dump area, the waste area, we've done some work out there with them. So if you need anything, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to leave some cards here. The other thing I wanted to bring up, though, and I've got William Bradford here, the CEO of United Communications. He's going to talk to you a little bit about our venture. In 2018, we partnered with United, and MTE owns the majority of the company. So we're trying to get broadband out to our members. And with all that being said, I'd like to introduce William Bradford, CEO of United Communications.
Can I ask a question before we get started on that?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. P.
As y'all know, I gave you a report on the solid waste class that I took in Gatlinburg here last month. The state, our federal representative who's on Ways and Means presented there, and he stressed exactly what he's telling us. TVA and our federal government is pushing for nuclear production of electricity. And I had a question about the Clinch project. Is that fusion or is that entirely nuclear?
It's nuclear, yeah.
Okay.
So it's a small reactor basically, and it's very similar to a nuclear reactor in some ways, but much smaller. But the initial cost of doing this project is going to be extremely high, and that's part of the reason why TVA's taking some time in getting all that approved. But we're looking, or they're looking, hopefully to get some government funding, some grants, things along that line. The state has also put some money in. We're involved in it. You know, we go to Oak Ridge and talk to them about our needs. And as you were just saying, you know, we have a lot of businesses that come in, like with the AI possibility, data centers, who look at us and say, we're going to need this tremendous amount of load. And that's only going to get worse in the future, right? So with all that being said, somebody's got to provide that power. And I think that's where TVA is saying, we see this as a solution. So hope that answers your question.
Well, it did. I'll make a quick mention. You know, the thing that concerned me about all the nuclear products and production upkeep or increases would be, what are we going to do with the waste? Now, our representative who's on Ways and Means, and his name is not in my head right now, but he was saying that there's newer technology out there that all this nuclear waste that we've got stored in caves in Arizona or Utah or wherever it's hid out can now be reused as fuel. So, you know, I haven't read up on that yet, but anyway, that made me feel better about what was going on there. One other thing, and then I'll stop. We are one of your best customers. When I say that, our schools and our offices, and I've looked at this, and it's, last time I looked at it, it was over $12 million annually on what we're paying out for electricity. One thing this group has done, we've looked at different ways of taking care of solid waste. One of them we looked at, which we hadn't pursued, would be waste to energy, where we could develop it and generate our own power. You know, I was always an advocate, hey, if we're going to do that, let's put it in Interchange City, where you had, at that time, Bridgestone, but you've still got Caterpillar, Walden Books, a lot of those large, well, that's actually the largest industrial site in the state of Tennessee. But if we had a waste of energy there, where we could actually distribute it to those large companies that are needing that power, that might help you alleviate that. But the problem we run into is TVA is not taking power from us, or would not take power for us, even though we're funding them in a big way. Right. Is there anything y'all can do to help us with that?
We're pretty much limited to what TVA can do when it comes to generation, obviously. And even though we're in, you know, the solar business to some degree, you could say, kind of dipping our toe in it. You know, though, TVA gives us credits as a distributor for providing an alternative way to keep the demand low. So, yeah, it would have to come through them.
Well, I think y'all could actually be a voice to advocate for that for us if you would. But anyway, please keep that in mind.
We'll do it.
Thank you.
All right.
Feel free to stay up here. I'll be real quick. I know we get a lot of questions, and Chuck and I are really in the infrastructure business, and I know that's what y'all deal with a lot, so thanks for having us here. Chuck mentioned 2018, they were hearing from their members, and they are a member service organization, and they heard from many of their members about the lack of access to broadband, primarily in the rural areas of Williamson, Rutherford, and Wilson County. And Commissioner Reed was one of the first advocates. He came by to see us even before the law changed and allowed electric cooperatives to deploy broadband networks. And so as a result, I thought I'd give everybody an update. Y'all have been very supportive. You may recall over the years you've written letters of support as we've looked to attract federal funding to this region. You've supported our broadband projects, and it didn't require a financial commitment, really. It just really required a lot of the federal and state programs wanted to see that the county leadership had a vested interest in these projects being a success. And I'm happy to report we've brought over $100 million of federal and state grants to the region to support what's now to date been $265 million of investment in broadband, primarily in these three counties. Rutherford County, we've brought service to 31,000 homes and businesses. We've started in the rural areas, the highest cost areas with the least amount of density, but that's been the area of the greatest need. And we have about 7,000 more homes and businesses that are currently under construction for fiber service in the county. Across the entire footprint, we'll close out the year with about 120,000 homes and businesses served with our state-of-the-art fiber network. So there's been great reception here in Rutherford County. We're a local company. We've hired a lot of employees here. We're up to 250 employees spread throughout 3 offices, one in Williamson County, one in Rutherford County, and one in Marshall County. Up from virtually zero. So all new jobs, really great jobs, in-home jobs, customer service jobs, and engineering and finance jobs to support this massive investment. So we love being part of the community and part of the economic development story here in Rutherford County. Similarly, we care what people think. We're headquartered here. Many times our employees are serving their neighbors. So I want to assure you, every customer that has an interaction with us and every new customer gets a survey. And we also survey all our customers once a year on how we're doing and what they need from us. So we talk a lot about fiber, and one of the things we heard from our customers is they want us to be a leader in fiber technology, and there's lots of flavors of fiber technology. We'll be one of the first companies at the end of this year in the country to have 100% 8 gig residential service, and that's the fastest speed currently available to any residents in the country. So we're staying ahead of the technology curve in what we're doing with our fiber optic network, and we think that'll maintain high customer satisfaction, and we're doing it while maintaining rates. Just like you heard from Chuck, Middle Tennessee Electric takes a high sense of pride in being in the lowest rate band of rates around the country when you benchmark ourselves, and the same applies to the broadband service. We're very sensitive to providing the latest technology while maintaining a very, very competitive fiber rates. Generally our plan is to continue to grow aggressively. We've got a great 2-year growth plan through the end of 2027 that'll see us start to expand inside the Murfreesboro city limits pretty aggressively as we wrap up through the end of 2026 a lot of our rural projects. So we're really excited about bringing service to all of Middle Tennessee Electric's members as we bring this critical infrastructure. Project Unite was our initiative to serve unserved Middle Tennessee Electric members. And to date, we've brought service of those 120,000 locations. 48,000 of those never had access to broadband, and there's 7,000 more that are still lack access to broadband to be served under projects that are currently in flight, and will wrap up in the middle of 2026. So if you hear from constituents that still lack access, I know Commissioner Beverly, he's not here, but he sent me a letter a month ago on somebody in Bell Buckle that still is lacking access, and we were able to call that constituent and say, hey, you're going to be served by a project here in the early 2026. Commissioner Reed sent us hundreds. He's still waiting to get service himself, but fingers crossed 2026. But please don't hesitate to reach out. We respond. We call the members. We let you know we've talked to them. And so please feel free to use us. And like Chuck said, I'll leave my cards here. If you hear from your own constituents or have issues still lacking access to broadband in your areas, your districts, please let us know. Lastly, one really cool thing we're doing is we build this retail broadband network to bring service to Rutherford County residents. We're building the future of the grid. And this is a project between a lot of really smart team on both members on our teams It's called the Smart Grid. And so as we go through, we're not only connecting your constituents, we're connecting the grid infrastructure to the fiber optic network. And what that does and why it will be really important is that will allow Middle Tennessee Electric to be a leader in the country on reliability. Right, think about it when you have storms come through or you have a truck, there's lots of growth, right? We get trucks that hit lines and we got storms that come through, it seems like, in this area. And when you think about it, the ability for the grid to sense there's an outage here and before your lights even flicker can shift it to another available source on the grid, it's going to be a huge advancement in grid reliability, and we're really excited about the future that brings in building both a smart grid and a broadband network for your residents. Chuck, anything else I should hit?
I can't think of anything. We'll leave some cards here for y'all. If you need anything, please feel free.
I have a couple of questions for both of them.
Commissioner P.
You can go ahead and catch it first, but I do have a question for you.
Mr. James.
Well, I'm just curious. You said you started with the rural areas of the county first, and then you're kind of cleaning that up in 2026.
Yes, sir.
Rough numbers, what kind of percentage of the county has access to service now, and what's your plan to get to that 100%?
Yeah, we believe countywide there's about 1,200 homes in Rutherford County that are still lacking access to broadband. We've got projects in flight through June of 26, and then we have one pending application with the state of Tennessee for some federal money that the state has to see the last serve. So we do have an application in that would serve every single remaining house. And some commissioners and Mayor Carr wrote a letter of support for that. It doesn't require any financial commitment from the county. But again, you get bonus points if you have local support. So we're very optimistic. We're a provisional awardee for 2 of the 3 zones in Rutherford County. So we're hopeful that that will allow us to put a bow and say we've served every single resident of Rutherford County that lacks access.
I recently had a constituent out in the Cooks Lane, Lee Road area asking about when it's coming. So definitely I'm going to need your card. I want to follow up on
Yeah, please do. We'd love to make sure we have that area on our radar.
As far as electric, unless, Robert, you want to go with United before I jump over to electric.
Sorry. You're up. I was looking at my notes here. My question to you, and you brought this up, was you're working to keep fiber optic rates as low as possible. I am right on the border. I had a DTC phone number, Rutherford County address. And do you have a non-compete clause with DTC that y'all are not going into each other's area? The reason I'm asking that because, I mean, to me, the competition is where those rates would come down. I know what it cost me with DTC. My next door neighbor is out of their zone and in y'all's zone. So, I mean, I'm right there on the border.
We'd love to have you as a customer. There's not a non-compete per se, but when the state law was changed in 2018, there were some provisions that allowed some protections for cooperative-owned internet providers in the state of Tennessee, of which there's about 15 or so of those in the state, and it prevented electric cooperatives from serving on top of existing internet and telephone cooperatives. Really, they're now internet cooperatives. So there is a state law that makes it a little trickier, but we meet with them regularly to make sure that they are bringing service to. They serve Middle Tennessee Electric members in Cannon County and little slivers of Rutherford and Wilson County, and so we do meet with them regularly and ensure that Middle Tennessee Electric members are at least getting access to broadband, even though we're not necessarily allowed to extend our retail network to them today.
Okay, I just wondered what the agreement between y'all were. Because I had heard y'all weren't crossing over. So.
Yeah, and that's really the state law. The state law originally prohibited any electric from being in the internet business, and that was, I guess, the compromise.
Well, that was similar to CUD and Murfreesboro City Water, where they had loans through the federal government, and they wouldn't let Murfreesboro take it over because then they'd worry about those loans being paid off. And I assume that's a similar reason.
Typically, right, that's where it all started. There were a lot of RUS loans to telephone and internet companies in high-cost rural areas, and so it really started federally. They wanted to make sure that those entities could pay back the loans, and they weren't going to fund multiple projects in the same area. And so a lot of that carried to state law over the years, which has been easing. I mean, I think the state, Governor Haslam really and Governor Lee went for so long, even at his own residence, without broadband. They've been huge advocates to see the market open up and folks like Middle Tennessee Electric expand network.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Phillips, Chairman Phillips. Chairman Phillips.
I was going to finish up with questions for the electric company, but you want to go ahead?
You mentioned growth in a positive way early on. Take a different look at it. This county's approaching 400,000 people with a projection in the next 25 years of 750,000 people. Are you prepared to meet those? And if so, what kind of problems is it going to cause you servicing the people of Rutherford County? And what type of obstacles are you going to face over the next 25 years? Part one of a question. Part two of a question, are you familiar with Plan Rutherford that we're looking at, we'll be looking at next? And my next question is, why not?
Well, let me say this, and we had a great conversation outside with the two ladies in the back. It's about planning, and that's it. I mean, you can say no more. And I think the first part of your question is, you know, where are we with the amount of growth that's going to happen, and how are we going to prepare for it? And I think what we're doing is we know we're limited to being able to send the power to you if we don't have the power to send, right? And what's driving a lot of that growth for us is not necessarily residential, it's the needs from commercial and industrial customers. That's where your big megawatt power comes from. So us supporting TVA, and part of my job is to go to Washington and lobby our folks to say, hey, we really need any types of grants or financial assistance you can give TVA to get this small reactor on. The sooner we get there, the better off we are, and I think that's part of this plan. One thing I will say is you can't necessarily put all your ducks in one bucket, or however the saying is. Ducks, what is it? Not ducks in a bucket, ducks in a row, or anyway. So my wife's always getting on to me how I can mangle that. There you go. But the thing is when we need demand, we have to count on gas, natural gas, and that gets us through that. And you've read, I'm sure, some of the folks that Cheatham County, the whole deal that blew up down there with TVA needing to build more resources. Well, you know, we're going to have to build it, and we're going to have to look at alternative type generation. But the basic load, when we're operating on a normal day, is going to come from nuclear. I think the administration has pushed that. That's where they want to see it. You don't hear much about coal anymore. Of course, the EPA and Department of Energy has kind of moved away from that. TVA's done a good job, by the way, of scrubbing their coal plants, but still. So that's the way of the future. And I think we're hopeful that the country will be the leader in that, and Tennessee will be the leader in the country. And Governor Lee is 110% behind it. He's putting money in it. He wants to see it happen. So that's the planning piece of it. But again, we're going to build it as long as we've got the supply.
And Commissioner Phillips, we really appreciate the partnership, and I can point to a few things that we'd love to see continue to happen. One, the chamber, when they're, to Chuck's point, right, those are the ones that catch people by surprise, is when they get a huge win and a big business wants to locate here and they have a huge demand need, right? Those happen a lot faster than maybe a whole residential development that has to go through long permitting. And so we're blessed, to have these kind of conversations with y'all, be a part of the chamber when they go out and recruit businesses on the front end. Typically, they want both broadband and electric providers there to ensure they can get the utilities at the day they're ready to open and take ownership of that location or build on that site. And so we want to be a partner to the county as they're pursuing all of those things. So please, I think, more just patting ourselves on the back. We love being a part of those conversations and being on the front end. because that allows us to ensure, that these site selection committees can green light a site and that we have the utilities ready. And so we've done that here and across our entire footprint has been a part of those bids to ensure the utilities. And much like y'all, are the roads, are there turn lanes, are there other water infrastructure? And we've got a seat at that table, and we're fortunate that doesn't happen everywhere, and that's great. And the same on the permitting side. I mean, our planning engineers are dedicated to just taking every single permit and making sure we're tracking it in our own GIS system, and we've got the facilities to serve it when it comes online. And that really works well. Now, I do say it doesn't work well in a lot of places. I can't imagine being in some other states and trying to run a utility or be in charge of other infrastructure, and that part of the cooperation works, and we appreciate having a seat at the table for those conversations.
Just one quick follow-up. Plan Rutherford is something we've been working on for actually over 4 years. Even the prior commission was working on Plan Rutherford, and it actually tries to take a snapshot of the future as to where things should be, where things should go, protecting some agricultural and some rural areas, that type of thing. So my question just was relating to your vision of the future and what does that really look like as far as providing those services to the growth that's expected for Rutherford County. Thank you for answering that. I appreciate it.
Mr. James.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm interested with currently, what is our primary source of power currently?
Well, the only source is TVA, yeah.
But, I mean, coal, gas?
It's a mix. I mean, it depends on, again, like if the base load is nuclear, but when we get into a high demand type situation, they're going to be bringing on gas turbines. And I know, and I hate to even bring this up, but we all went through Winter Storm Elliott and the rolling blackouts. Well, when you have weather like that, that's when we rely, or TVA relies on gas, and they had a plant go down. So it just depends on the situation. But again, nuclear is probably the biggest. The Gallatin steam plant, they do quite a bit of generation too, but it's in TVA's portfolio.
What kind of load capacity are we at right now and versus the projected growth that we're estimating in the immediate future and in the 25-year old?
I don't know. That'd be a TVA question.
How close we are to pulling at our quota, so to speak. And that kind of goes in determination of some of the growth that we can improve or not, if we can. Because that leads me to would be the likelihood of rolling blackouts, like you had just mentioned.
Right.
And depending on that.
Well, and in TVA's defense, I mean, as I was saying, I don't ever remember us having a rolling blackout. That was an anomaly. I mean, and it was all due to the weather dropping significantly within a matter of, hours. And that caused TVA some problems. Since then, they have taken care of that. But I think overall, again, the planning piece of that and us being involved, TVA has also done a lot of planning and a lot of site select, looking at different sites. One thing I will say, though, and this is true, if you've got a business and you're trying to plan the facilities to take care of a need, you don't want to plan it on the high part, right? You really want to plan it on the middle part because, and I'm talking about the load, because that's what's going to be constant. So TVA over the years has always said, hey, let's keep the load steady, and when we start getting into peak situations, let's try to incentivize our C&I customers to drop load so that we don't have to build more facilities. Because guess what? When you do, it costs more money, and guess who pays for it? So they're going to pass it along to us, and we have to pass it along to the member. But I think what's got everybody's eyes open is the whole AI, quantum technology, and of course, the data centers. I mean, I work out of the Franklin office, And we'll occasionally have somebody come in there and they're wanting something ridiculous. Now, a lot of times they're basing it on way more load than what, or power than what they need. But still, you know, it's coming. And I think TVA is trying to get ahead of the curve there, so to speak, and be able to provide that power when we need it. As far as our peak and all that goes, we do have peaks. We do set peaks, you know, when we have really cold weather, typically, or even hot weather. But in saying that, we've been able to ride through it. But again, you've got to add in that piece of the unknown, you know, who's moving here, and it kind of gets back to his question.
Well, like earlier when you were mentioning peaks and so forth, you were kind of hinting at it, and I was wondering, are you talking about fluctuating rates depending on time
With the
of
peaks?
day? Yes.
Now, I'm talking about actual consumption.
No, I mean during those peak moments where earlier you were hinting, and maybe I made a note thinking that you were suggesting or talking about, talking about fluctuating rates during peak season.
Well, what I'm saying there is, you know, there's got to be a way to be able to control some of the demand, right? And you know, and I've heard this before, I don't know how much I believed it, but I've heard that in our area of the country, we use more power than anybody, and it's because it's so low compared to other areas. People leave their lights on, you know, people don't buy fishing equipment. And of course, as a power distributor, we're pushing that, right? But the next thing would be, you know, possibly, and I'm not saying this is in the near future, but it could be in the future, is to give not only our commercial and industrial customers the ability to save money by participating in a time of usage when the peak and the demand's not there. So if you're going to do clothes, if you're going to cook, you know, you can kind of watch that and hopefully save money, which helps us with the load, helps TVA with the load. So I think that's what I was meaning when we were talking about the rates, is that might be a means to get members, customers, to help get that rate down or that load down.
Two final sections I wanted to ask about, like what about street lights in neighborhoods and so forth? How is that set up with you guys? How does that work? You know,
basically, you know, we've got a contract with the city and also, and that was part of the deal. And then of course with the county, when we go out, of course right now we have high pressure sodium lighting in a lot of places. When those go out and are replaced, we're replacing those with LED lighting. So if you see the old orange type lights in a neighborhood, you'll start to see those being gradually changed out because they're a lot more efficient and it's actually a better rate. Those are put up by individual members in the county possibly, you know, a guy that owns a farm. They could be put up or requested by a homeowners association. They could be requested by a city. You know, we have different cities that actually have street lighting. So that's pretty much how that works.
And then my final point, I was wanting to ask if there's a way to better schedule the utility work with when our improvements are being done or when road work is being done. And I'd like to cite kind of 2 points. I had a neighborhood in my area get resurfaced, and a pole was being replaced, but it sat half-cut, empty, waiting to be removed for almost 18 months. And then after they resurfaced the road, about 4 days later, here they come to take the pole out. Now there's a permanent indention where those little pads from the legs go to push. It took 20 years to get the road resurfaced, and within 4 days, you've already put a pothole on it.
Well, there's.
Or then the other example is at the Blackman four-way stop. There is a large stoppage waiting for the services. It's really for, I guess, both departments, since y'all both latch onto the poles, for the service to come down so the pole could be removed. They already had the new poles in place. They're just literally waiting. I guess I'm just asking, is there any way we can try to line those up better so we're not having a larger delay in our plans?
Well, one of the things that we struggle with is obviously we're going to be out there because we got to provide power to the homes, right? And we have Comcast, we have AT&T, who are also sitting on our poles, along with United, hopefully. But when a pole's damaged or a pole needs to be replaced, it takes all three of those utilities to be able to transfer to a new pole. So sometimes that can happen and slow down that process. Somebody mentioned earlier that, you know, they had a pole like that the pole's there and we're transferred, you know, Middle Tennessee Electric's on it, but Bell South or Comcast is still hanging on an old pole. So
And we can always look in the pole, like, sometimes if the other providers don't make their transfer to the new pole, they actually end up owning that pole, and they're the ones removing it.
Yeah.
In many cases, if you have an individual stub pole, typically that's already been cut at the top, it means power's moved, typically that pole is going to be transferred. If those other providers don't hit their deadlines to come move their facilities, then it becomes.
But we typically, obviously, we're going to move to the new pole pretty quickly, and most of them we own when you're talking about main distribution lines. So, but to help that situation, it's really about communication, right? And the only way, there's two ways. One is to create a plan to where everybody's notified properly, and we've done I think the best we can do with that, considering we've got other utilities. But if anybody has a pole that's sitting there and it needs to be pulled, you know, please call us. I mean, we can go out and pull the pole once the utilities are off. Yeah, the utilities. That's a trick, though. That's always a question that people bring up, and it's really hard to manage that when we can't solely manage all of it.
Well, is there not an entity that has supervening authority for getting, when a pole is being replaced like that, to get all the lines moved? You just have to wait for whoever's attached into it, each one at a time, to show up?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of federal rules on what, they can't even touch the other providers' facilities, because you don't know the critical 911 services on there. You just don't know what.
Well, I figured you would have
We
superseding
obviously work
authority
really well
over
together.
the pole itself, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's a little different here, but again, we can't control them other than to say, hey, you need to transfer. And they get the documentation and the request that the pole's been replaced. It could be a bad pole, it could be a pole that's hit by a car, but they get that, and sometimes they sit on it, as Pettis was talking about earlier. So anyway.
But I do want to assure you, anytime there's a road move or an active road project, we're notified of that, and we'll do our clearances and in the timeline of that construction project. Where maybe things fall through the crack would be if there's a resurfacing and it wouldn't have required notification to us because we're not moving facilities. I would probably suggest that project might have been independent of the surfacing project that was going on, and it just was bad timing. But 9 times out of 10, we're involved in, if there's an actual widening, a lane change, addition, we're moving pole lines, we're part of the project management system that fits in with that road project, and so there is good coordination. Need to think through, that's a good example you brought up on the other.
And with Commissioner Phillips' question, he had about, are we involved in Plan Rutherford, which is a very legitimate question, by the way. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And I think we need to be part of that discussion. Typically, we try to get involved in that, especially, obviously, if we're asked, but I'll check on that and see what's going on.
I want to thank you, gentlemen, for showing up tonight and providing all this valuable information. And
thank you for having us.
We'll have you back again. Okay, next thing we have is Plan Rutherford update. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm still Doug Demosi, your planning director. So I'd like to take just a few minutes just to talk about the Plan Rutherford, what was done at the Planning Commission last month, and kind of where we go from here. Excuse me. During the September 8th, 2025 meeting, the Planning Commission did vote to adopt Plan Rutherford, and that's consistent with the state law that does allow planning commissions to adopt long-range plans such as Plan Rutherford. There is a copy of the plan on your iPads. That is the adopted copy along with the resolution that was passed along with the adoption during the September 8th meeting. Just to give you an overview of the process, and Commissioner Phillips talked about this just a few minutes ago, the discussions on this actually started back in 2021 when we started having our discussions about about updating the previously adopted comprehensive plan that we had. The process officially kicked off in November of 2021. We had a joint meeting between the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners. Since that time, we've had over a dozen public meetings, 3 different surveys, 3 Planning Commission work sessions, which all of that culminated in the document that you have on your iPads right now, and then some handouts I gave you, which I'll get to here in just a little while. The purpose of the meeting tonight is not really to do a deep dive into the document of Plan Rutherford. However, I would encourage everybody to look at the document on the iPads. We can send you the link to it if you need to, but again, it is on your iPads. If anybody has questions about that after reading things over, I would definitely encourage you to give me a call. I'll be more than happy to discuss any questions that you might have. But just as a quick overview of the plan, I will go through just a very brief, content list. Chapter 1 kind of gives an overview of the plan and also some frequently asked questions. Excuse me. Chapter 2 has growth trends and outlook. We actually spoke about some of the growth patterns and things during the MTE's presentation just a few minutes ago. You'll find a number of maps and charts in Chapter 2 that kind of go over what we've seen, what we're currently seeing, and what is projected as time goes on. Chapter 3 gets into community engagement, the visions and the goals, the future land use policies, and the priorities that were recommended by the plan. Chapter 4 has a pretty substantial list of recommended actions, and Chapter 5 goes into implementation guidance and strategies. Now, most of the discussion that we had during the public hearing and our work sessions at the Planning Commission was about the character area map and the map descriptions. That's what's on your table today. You'll see that there's it's a handout, it's 11 by 17 sheets. They're both there front and back. The first one has the overall map. It's basically this board that you have over to my right here and your left. Kind of gives you an overview of the map and the different character areas, and then you'll see the descriptions of the rural preserve, the rural living, and the county suburban. So the unincorporated area, as I stated, is broken into 3 primary categories. You do have the rural preserve, which is that brownish area on the outskirts of the county. It generally recommends 1 unit per 5 acres. The rural living is the next, that green area as you start coming in closer to the municipalities. That's probably the one we had the most discussion about. That density range is recommended anywhere from 1 unit per acre to 1 unit per 5 acres. Sorry, excuse me. And then that last part, the county suburban, which is that yellowish, tannish area kind of surrounding the municipalities and the urban growth boundary areas. That has a range of anywhere from 3 units per acre to 5 units per acre. During our presentations that we had for the public hearing and during the work sessions that we had, we did make some changes to the original proposal for what that map and character areas look like. We did add some more of the county suburban character area in the southeast area of the county going toward exit 89, which is the Epps Mill Road intersection or interchange off I-24. In the rural preserve, which is that darker area, that dark brown area on the outskirts, we did add language about providing a voluntary agricultural district that has higher lot sizes than what we would currently have in our codes. And then in the rural living, we did add language in there. Again, this was the one we probably had the most discussion about. We did add language there about, while we understand that, yes, the density range was anywhere from 1 unit per acre to 1 unit per 5 acres, we do realize that there are going to be areas within that rural living area that are going to have better infrastructure, better soils, and would better accommodate denser developments. And that would be something that we would have the ability at that point as a planning commission and as the county commission to make changes to the zoning ordinance, zoning codes to help better accommodate that. So some things that the plan adoption by the planning commission did not do. The first thing it did not do was change the current zoning. Okay, the zoning of the property as it was on September the 7th is the same as it is after September the 8th and as it is currently. The zoning of the properties in the unincorporated of the county, none of that has changed as the result of Plan Rutherford. It did not change any of our zoning regulations or subdivision regulations. Those, again, are the same as they were before the adoption as they have been after the adoption. Those processes, as far as zoning changes and zoning code amendments, subdivision regulation amendments, are completely different processes. When we adopted our last comprehensive plan, the next step we did was actually go through and do a comprehensive review of our zoning ordinance, of our subdivision regulations. That process took the better part of about 2 years to get everything done between the new zoning ordinance and then the subdivision regulations. It took about 2 years. So that's not something that we were going to undertake lightly or hastily. That's going to be something that's going to take time. The last thing that I will say that did not do, there is a list of action items that I talked about in Chapter 4. It's not a mandated list. They are recommendations. There are several, there's literally dozens of recommended steps in there. Some of these we will get to, some of them we will not. Just from a time and resources standpoint, there's going to be some things that are just going to be impossible to do. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that just because the action items are in Chapter 4 of the adopted plan does not mean we have to do every single one of those. So ultimately, why are we here tonight? First of all, we are not asking for adoption tonight, and I'll explain why here in just a minute. The Planning Commission and staff, however, are asking that the Public Works and Planning Committee send Plan Rutherford to the Board of Commissioners for their consideration and possible adoption. The resolution that I did include on your tables, it's also on your iPads, does kind of outline that we are asking. It's the very last part of the document. You'll see that we are asking, Planning Commission are asking to have this moved to the full Board of Commissioners. This is not something that I think, we don't need to decide on the planned contents tonight. Really, we are just asking for this to move forward. And I will say that, like I said earlier, we're not asking for any adoption tonight. State law under TCA 13-3304 requires a public hearing with 30 days notice prior to the adoption of the plan by the county commission. So even if you did decide to move it forward, we would have to decide on a date, and we would have to advertise that date appropriately. So there will be opportunity.
You should just back up a half a sentence and read it again, please.
Say that again.
Just back up a half a sentence and read it again. That's critical.
Okay. Tennessee Code Annotated 13-3304 requires a public hearing with 30 days notice prior to the adoption of the plan. So before the county commission can take up any kind of a motion or any kind of a meeting to adopt Plan Rutherford, they would have to have a public hearing that had to be notified at least 30 days in advance of when the meeting date is. Is that what you were asking about, Mr. Dodd? Okay, very good. Adoption by the plan of the Board of Commissioners. If that does happen, now this I will say that's not a requirement in the state law that the county commission adopt the plan, but if they do, any land use decisions thereafter made by either the legislative body, the Planning Commission, or the Board of Zoning Appeals, when they're exercising their powers on matters other than variances, like a special exception or something like that, have to be consistent with the recommendations and the outcome, or the contents of the plan. So that is within the state law as far as that goes. The Board of Commissioners, the full board, can ask the Planning Commission to make changes to this. However, they will have to go back before the Planning Commission. There's a certain time frame that once the County Commission says, hey, we want the Planning Commission to look at this, they have a certain number of days, 61 days, to bring it back to the full commission with a recommendation, either yes, we're changing it, or no, we won't. So that's just kind of a quick overview of the process moving forward. I'm here to answer any questions and to talk through any concerns that you might have.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. James.
Did I hear you correct? You don't need us to discuss, you're not really needing for discussion or breaking down into points. We need to send it to, you're requesting us to send it to the full commission. So we're not adopting it here, we're trying to send it to the full commission.
Correct. Yeah, there's no adoption tonight. No, sir.
Just clarify for me, if we were to send it to the full commission as is, it would essentially indicate that this commission or this committee is ready to move forward with it and recommending it to the full commission. So
not necessarily. I think, like I said,
we would be.
I don't agree with that. I think all we're asking for tonight is that it moves to the full commission. If the full commission has things that they want the planning commission to look at, they would need to be the ones to send it back to the planning commission, not just the committee, as the state law. And I've had several conversations with our county attorney about that, and we both agree that any changes to the plan would have to come from, or recommended changes would have to come from the full commission back down to the planning commission, not from committee.
With that understanding, it comes at that the planning committee has 4 years to put it together, and Public Works has one night to look at it before we send it to the full commission.
Again, you're just moving it forward for consideration. You're not necessarily taking action on anything. It's just part of our report, like any other thing that we talk about. You're moving it forward. When we talk about our rezoning requests, you're not making a recommendation on whether you are going to vote for or against the zoning request when you send it forward. You're waiting to the county commission to do that. I'm just making my report at this point.
Okay, so we're just looking over your report. So in that case, then, if we had any recommendations, we couldn't send it back to planning committee. They'd have to go to the full commission to then send it back there to say, hey, these recommendations were made. So
I think I understand what you're saying, yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna mull on that. If anybody else has another question, I have another question.
Mr. Chairman, whoever was first.
Commissioner Dodd.
Yeah, this is troubling. The abundance of information you just shared about one component was a 30-day notice to the full commission for adoption. So it can't be heard next week.
Correct. It's not, we're not planning, we're not bringing it up next week.
And then secondly, there was commentary about if the commission does adopt it, it has a different weight to whom? To a developer requesting a zoning change, or explain that part. There's just so much in that one paragraph you read. It leaves me mystified on what authority we have as commissioners that you report to. So how do we vet this down?
I think all it's saying, I mean, personally, I think all it's saying is that if the county commission does adopt it, yes, it has a little more teeth to it, but what it has teeth are is saying any recommendations or land use decisions that you make need to be consistent with the adopted plan. That's what it's saying. Which is what, honestly, we strive for when we're looking at decisions today. I mean, we want to be consistent with the plans that we have. So that's really, I don't think, any different than how we're currently operating.
If I have any disagreement with this plan, I'm not on planning commission, my voice is here. And my voice is at this committee level that planning reports to. Then we have the greater debate at full commission.
Correct. Yeah. If you make a decision tonight to move it forward, you're not making any decision as far as you're endorsing it or you're not. You're just saying, we're moving it to the full commission, we'd have to set it for a public hearing, and we'll let the conversation continue at that point.
Okay, so let's drill down on that one. If we make a decision to move it forward tonight, precisely what happens next and when?
We would have to set a public hearing at that point. I know we've had some conversations about having a special called county commission meeting for just this topic, not being on a regular meeting date. So we would have to come up with a date, at least 30 days in advance, so we would have time to advertise it.
And the purpose of that meeting is a courtesy granted to us by the planning commission because they don't need us to adopt it. What is the motivation for sending it to the full commission if the planning commission doesn't need it to be endorsed? Is that a courtesy or is that state law?
I wouldn't call it a courtesy. State law gives the ability for the planning commission to ask the county commission for adoption. It's not a requirement that the county commission do it, okay? But I think it's more than a courtesy. I think it's the planning commission saying, we've worked on this plan for the last 3 to 4 years. We've adopted it. We feel that the county commission should adopt it as well, and then say, yes, we are going to make any decisions consistent with this plan. I think ultimately that's what this is. I don't think it's more, I wouldn't say it's just a mere courtesy. in that regard.
If the county commission, if we choose to forward it, if we don't choose to forward it, can the chairman of the planning commission bring it up at a full commission meeting without endorsement from this committee?
For adoption?
Yeah.
Not without having a public hearing 30 days in advance. Nothing, that doesn't change anything. Yeah. The planning commission, if they still wanted the county commission to adopt, it would still have to come through this process. That, I don't think there's any bypassing this.
So previously I was told it's adopted.
The planning commission did adopt it. That's
Correct. And the planning commission needs no more vote, no more approval. It's adopted. If the full commission chose to undertake it, it might add more teeth, but the planning commission could say no to any recommendations from the full commission, yes, or otherwise. Is that correct?
That is correct.
If a planning commissioner wants to recommend a change, do we have the authority to amend Plan Rutherford as it exists today?
If it's adopted or if it's not adopted. I mean,
It's already adopted.
right. I mean, I'm asking if the county commission adopts it.
No, it's adopted now.
Right.
At this upcoming, I'm going to say, upcoming opportunity for this commissioner to express discomfort with a couple of components.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have an avenue to amend, to make a motion to amend this?
Mm-hmm. The way the state law reads, if you want changes made to the plan that the planning commission has adopted, you could make the request back to the planning commission to make those changes. I don't think you can adopt it, a change to it, just with the county commission without planning commission.
Understood. Okay. So,
yeah. So there is an avenue, but it's not, I don't think you could just change it.
Let me
right
restate
there
my
on the
question then. So
fly.
if this commissioner has issue with a component or two, and I make a motion at a full commission meeting, the motion would be to send it back to planning commission for consideration of this amendment, if it happened to pass.
If it passes, then yes, they would go back down to the planning commission. The planning commission then has 61 days to make a recommendation on the change and then send it back to the county commission.
The first next opportunity for any planning commissioner, any public works committee member to make recommendations for amendments is at least 30 days from
whenever we set the public hearing. It would be whenever we set the public hearing, that would be when you would say, these are the things we want the planning commission to look at possibly changing, and then send it back to the planning commission based on how the law is written.
I'll defer to any other committee members. Thank you, guys, for letting me think that through.
Doug,
Commissioner P.
Please go ahead.
just what you're saying, I just felt like I needed to point out, I'm frustrated with the sequencing. I'm frustrated with it, and I can feel that my constituents are as well. Feels obvious that they would be. Not necessarily the plan as a whole or nothing, but the procedure that you just lined out, that I'll take me as an example. I am their elected voice for the 9th district. And with this plan, you're saying that I don't get any feedback. I get feedback, but I don't get any adjustments that could be made or tweak it or anything that can be done in that manner. That we have to rely, as their representative, have to rely on an appointed body to then dictate their 10, 20, 30-year plan down the road. And we have very limited ability to correct it, tweak it, alter it, anything like that. That I just felt like I needed to point out that I find that as their elected voice, that to me that's disturbing. And I don't see a fix on it other than, I guess, what you're citing, state law. But
yeah, the process that we're outlining here tonight is what's outlined in state law. So
but I
understand where you're coming from, but that's the process as defined.
If we adopt it ourselves without having the back and forth and really, really putting it together. That although there is a very slight avenue to change in time, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've ever changed any of our previous ones. And then our
Well, we only had the one, so I mean, it's not like we've had that many, but we only
then
had the
our
one. Yeah.
policies will be rewritten based on this, and that will end up compounding the problem.
Well, let me at least say this regarding what you just said. Any changes to the regulations have to go through the normal process as far as ordinance amendments. Subdivision regulations, of course, are a creature of the Planning Commission. They stay there, they don't come here. But the zoning ordinance, the zoning map, that does come to you, and you are the final authority on those kind of decisions when it comes to rezonings, when it comes to zoning ordinance amendments and those kind of things. Those things you do have the ability to make changes on, but if basically, like I said, the plan's adopted by the county commission, then you want to make sure everything is consistent. And from a legal standpoint, I think that's what you want anyway. You want to be consistent with your decisions on your land use plans because that helps protect you. You know, it gives you legal cover if you're making decisions based on the recommendations of the plan.
What would I don't know, I'm looking at that and looking at trying to get the public's true input and not just a small percentage, even though I know you've had several meetings.
Well, and let me, we've heard that, excuse me, we've heard that a lot of times, and I understand. As a planner, I wish we had more input with these kind of things.
I'm not being,
And
I'm arguing.
we advertise these meetings, we put them out there. I cannot go door to door and force people to come to these meetings, so we make the best decisions we can with the input that we get. So while I understand where you're coming from, I mean, we feel the frustration as well, but like I said, we can't force people to come to these meetings and to give their input.
I'm wondering if it would not behoove us to look at, we've got an election cycle coming up just around the corner, putting this out for referendum and letting the people themselves vote yea or nay for it.
Well, I will say, I'm not an expert on how referendums work as far as that goes. I will say that my reading of the state law doesn't make any kind of a provision for a referendum on something like this. So now that's something I'd have to talk with our county attorney about, but I've seen nothing in the state law that references some sort of a referendum for a land use adoption. So I'm just so you know.
Commissioner P.
I just wanted to make sure everybody that wanted to talk had a chance to talk. I'm going to make a motion, and this motion is going to be a resolution of the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission that was adopted on the 8th day of September 2025, and I'm going to read what they've asked here so there won't be any confusion. Be it further resolved that the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission directs that this resolution and a copy of Plan Rutherford and the maps incorporated therein, which is attached hereto as Exhibit A, be transmitted to the Board of Commissioners for its consideration. I so move.
Discussion.
Mr.
Mr.
Dodd.
Chairman, may I speak? So Doug, tell me exactly what an approval of yes vote of Mr. P's motion, seconded by Mr. Piercy. The yes vote sends it to transmitted to the Board of Commissioners for its consideration.
Sorry. Yeah.
So tell me precisely the next step before we call for the vote.
The next step, if this is voted to move it forward, the next step would be to come up with a date for the public hearing. That really is the next step. And then at that point, we would know, okay, this is the date we're shooting for. We have to advertise by this date in order to do it. That literally is the next step.
The public hearing would be followed by a consideration of the full Board of Commissioners.
Correct. I mean, kind of what I think when you envision this to be would be, if it's a specially called meeting, you would have the public hearing. At that point, you would have the ability to make a decision at that point. At that point, you could say, well, we have these issues we would like to have the Planning Commission further consider. You could do that.
So what I want to be careful of is I want to support Plan Rutherford. I want to support Chairman Reed. I want to support Commissioner Chairman Phillips, who have worked diligently on this. I think some industries were underrepresented. I went to one meeting and was told I hate developers. So it was very difficult to be candid and honest in the Plan Rutherford meetings and not be demonized. And I was told there would be opportunities to combat this, and that's not tonight. So I'm trying to be very disciplined and respectful. That's not tonight, correct?
Correct.
I have items that make me very uncomfortable with some components of this. Will I have an opportunity to voice my concern and have it heard by the full commission and potentially have impact on Plan Rutherford and an opportunity to amend it, go back to Planning Commission? Will that occur? Is that my time to speak if it's not tonight?
That would be the time to speak, to try to get something back to the Planning Commission, yes. Obviously, you and I have a good rapport. If you've got concerns, you know my number.
I do.
And you've got my cell number now, I found out.
And I was told there'd be 2 public hearings, and I was told there's not, because it's not necessary.
Well, it's 2 public hearings, one at the Planning Commission, one at the
hammered it
county.
and said it's adopted. I called quickly to say, where's my second public hearing? I was told it does not have to occur. Now I'm told it will occur. And if I'm quiet tonight and I vote yes to move this to the full commission, I must be convinced that I'm not misinterpreting what the opportunity you're giving us. I want an opportunity for a bite at this apple that I've bitten my lip for 3 years because I was condemned at the first time I opened my mouth. Our industry's had one person representing us, not hundreds, because nobody wants to hear hundreds of us get up there and be accused of being greedy. So we're not loud, but we've bitten our lip. And I'm here tonight, I'm being promised that I have an opportunity for my industry to speak and potentially amend the final product. We finally have it done, to the credit of the hard work that these guys behind me have done. The opportunity to amend it and vet it as a commissioner is at the next meeting that will occur as an announced public hearing. Is that correct?
That's correct. And if I could say something about that, you remember when I was making my presentation just a few minutes ago, I was talking about some of the changes that we did make to the plan. Quite frankly, those changes we made were as a result of the comments that we heard from your industry that you keep talking about. So understand that yes, we have, regardless of what they may say or may think, yes, we have been listening. Yes, we have made some changes.
Well said. From 5 acres to 1 acre is a big leap. What I can't get, I'm trusting that tonight's, I need to hold my powder in my keg. Because tonight's not the night. That night's coming, correct?
Correct. If you have things you want us, I know some of the concerns you have because we've talked about them, so I understand those. But like I said, the decision tonight is not to endorse the plan. It's simply to move it to the full county commission for their consideration.
Out of respect to the motioner, you know how much I respect you. So I hope you understand I need to be real clear to continue to vote yes with you as I've done for years. And I want to support this motion out of respect for the motion and the second.
Can I interject something? I would not have made this motion with the thought that you would not have a voice. As a matter of fact, the reason I am making it is because if we don't do this, you don't have a voice. You cannot change what's already been done. This is the only avenue, from what I'm understanding, that you've got a chance to make changes to this plan and send it back to the Regional Planning Commission. Otherwise, if you don't pass this, then you're done.
Is that what you hear, Commissioner? And you?
I'd much rather, I'm looking at this sending it, I'd much rather do like you do in the school board or the health and ed, and you have a year where you bring in the school board and go over their budget jointly, a joint meeting. We bring in the planning commission. We have a joint planning and public works meeting and kind of get into the meat and potatoes of this. Let a representative voice kind of connect the dot before we, adopt and risk sending it to the full commission for full adoption without having any say.
Commissioner P is right. This guarantees you a final public hearing, which developers, real estate folks, our consulting community can have one more chance. And trust me, Phil, I understand your frustration, but for those of us on planning who have stayed after planning with multiple public hearings with these same folks in the audience who've had social intercourse back and forth about this multiple times, they have not been pushed to the side. They've had their opinions. This gives everybody, including all 21 of us, one more chance, including the public, to make one last stand. And then we can push any changes back to planning. They have 61 days, planning being the three of us, plus others, and come back 61 days later and say, here's what we've come back to. And then what happens then, Doug, if we've kind of got to the 5-yard line, let's say, so we've pitched some changes to you, 61 days, you come back and say, well, we're going to change 8 of those 10. We're going to pound our fist on the table and say no to those 2. Mm-hmm. Is that where it all ends and we all shake hands and agree, or do we fuss and moan and go back for another 61 days? What happens if we come to an impasse on some of the changes?
Well, if there's an impasse, let's say it goes to the Planning Commission, does what it has to do there, comes back to the County Commission. The Planning Commission says, we like it the way it is, we're not changing it, or like you said, we're going to change these, we're going to leave these alone. At that point, I think there's more deliberation, and at some point there'd be a vote, and majority vote would win. So it's a majority, it's not like a 2/3 or anything like that, it's a majority vote. Correct, yes, sir, full vote, yes, sir.
Correct me if I'm wrong, we could send it or call for a public meeting anyway on this now, right?
Now, when you say a public meeting,
A public hearing or a public discussion of it.
on the plan for adoption, before any meeting on adoption, you would have to have a public hearing advertised at least 30 days.
So that's where you're saying it's
Right.
the last hurrah.
Yeah, if we don't motion to forward this to the full commission, there's not an additional public hearing. Is what I'm hearing. If we say tonight, we take no action, then the plan is adopted without the commission consideration. Unless somebody brought it up from the floor, and then there's not a 30-day notice for public hearing.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why I have to be super cautious here, because this is the first time I've gotten down to the precise procedure. So let's do that. If this motion fails and we don't forward it, what happens?
Then the Planning Commission uses the plan as we've been using our previously adopted comprehensive plan. Yeah.
Anybody else?
May I request a roll call? Is that appropriate? May I request a roll call vote?
Okay, Commissioner P, would you restate the motion, please?
It is.
It was the very, it's the last paragraph.
And I read that specifically. I didn't want to read anything more into it.
Right.
What planning had brought.
Okay, we're through. We're good. Okay, no more discussion? Okay, call the roll, please.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Cush. Commissioner Piercy. Commissioner P.
Yes.
Commissioner James. Commissioner Dodd.
Yes.
Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Doug.
Yes, sir. Correct. Yeah, and I'll work with Chairman Phillips on this, and of course, Commissioner Reed, being for the Plan Commission, possibly, yeah, with the holidays coming up.
And will it be, is it declared as a emergency call meeting? Is it declared as such, or will the chairman and planning?
Yeah. Way above my pay grade. Way above my pay grade.
Okay, do we have any other business? All right. We stand adjourned.